Hey, so in this lecture I want to talk about how we can do input with strings, and we'll start off with C strings. So I have a C string right here, 20 elements, and those are going to be initialized to null characters. Then I want to enter my first name, so I'm going to enter that and do cin, standard cin. I'll just call that name for right now, and then I go and print that out again. Build it on, and we can see what we get. Enter some name, your first name, Bob. And it simply recalls that your first name is Bob. So that is easy enough. We can see we can do console input with that. And we can do the same thing with a standard string. So I have standard string name, and if I build a run, enter some name, that is going to work and print out just fine. I'll get back to using the C string for now. This is simple, the console input with a name. Now, what if we want to do something like full name? Let's change this here too. To something like this, so I want to enter my full name now, and then I'm going to print that out. If I build a run, just to demonstrate what is going on. Of course, I enter my first name and then my last name here with a space in between, and if I press enter, I will actually only get my first name, and that's because the console input will only read until it sees a space, also referred to as a white space. Okay, that is how that algorithm is going to work. So how can we fix this? Well, we basically need to use a member function on the cin. So instead of doing this as we had done it before, what we can do is, I'll just go and do dot here, and we can use getline. For the first argument, we want to specify the C string. For the second argument, we need to specify how many characters should be written to the C string, including the null terminating character. Let's just do 20 here, and if I build a run, enter my full name, press enter, and you can see it's going to read and store my full name in the C string, and then it's going to print it out as we would expect. And as I mentioned, we can go and change this. So let's say it only reads the first 5 characters for some reason. Then I build a run, press enter, and it will extract the first 4 characters and write those out to the C string, or store those in the C string. Remember, the C string needs a null at the end as well. It might seem weird that we are calling a member function on cin, but this object console input is declared with static duration in IOStream. Alright, and that is going to persist for the duration of the program. And of course, you don't need to include string for this, only IOStream. So this should work fine now. And I'd also like to mention that you have an overload with a delimiter. For example, if I go and add, let's say the character A for the delimiter, you can see that he has actually a useful parameter name, delim for delimiter. In the first overload, the delimiter is the new line character, so in other words, when we press the enter key on the keyboard, it's going to stop reading the input that is extracting from the input stream. And in the second overload, where we provide the delimiter as an argument, it will be extracted but discarded and won't be written to the C string. I'll just make sure to set here to 20 or something like that again, so we know that this is going to extract enough characters from the input stream. If I build a run again, notice that I only get my first name now, and also if I go and change this, maybe to lowercase a, build a run, and you can see how that delimiter works. It's now only going to read the first 2 characters of my surname. So that is a quick look at the getline and how that works with character strings. So a similar example with the standard strings, I'm including the standard string, and I have a standard string full name, and I want to enter my full name, and then I want to extract that from the input, and then I want to print that out. And as with the C string, you will see that we only get our first name printed out if we have a space between our first name and our last name, or your second name if you have more than one name, of course. So basically what's going to happen is the stream extraction operator will stop when it sees a white space, that is the space character, or when we press the enter key. Now for the getline, this is going to be different. This is not a cin member function. This is in standard. I do getline, and notice the difference here with the member functions. For the first argument, we want to specify the two controls, the spacebar here. We want to specify the stream, so we pass in the console input stream, because that is what we want to extract from. When we enter from the keyboard, we want to extract from that, from console input, and we want to write to the full name. So again, notice the difference. Previously with the C strings, we had a member function on cin, whereas this is not a member function, okay? So I'll just build a run here. Enter your full name and that will work fine. So it will read the space. And with this, we also have a couple of overloads. So with this version, it's going to read until it reads the new line character. So in other words, until you press enter. But we can specify a delimiter as before with the C string. I'll go with M in this case. And then I'll build a run. Press enter and you can see it's not going to write the delimiter to the destination, in this case full name, that standard string. It's only going to read ADA, and when it reads the M character, that is the delimiter, and it's going to discard that. A quick high-level summary on what we've discussed in this lecture on the getline function. With C strings, we use the cin.getline. We pass in the C string name followed by the number of characters that we want to write to that C string, including the null terminating character, of course. Then we also have the getline, where we can pass in as an argument a standard string. That function is in the standard namespace. We do standard getline and we pass in the stream for the first argument. That is where we get the input from. So in this case, we do standard cin, and then we have the standard string name that we pass in, the identifier of the standard string that we want to write to, or that is save what we read in to. Okay, then both versions of the getline function have an overload where the optional delimiter can be specified. The delimiter is a character argument. Character extraction is going to stop when the delimiter character is reached in that character sequence. The default delimiter is the new line, so in other words when the user presses the enter key, otherwise it is the argument delimiter. Okay, now before we wrap up this lecture, I'd like to leave you with an exercise. For this exercise, I want you to go and write a to-do list for what you want to do, maybe for the next day. We end this to-do list off with an underscore. Whatever delimiter you choose, I chose the underscore here because it is unlikely that I'll use that in my to-do list. Then if I press enter, your to-do list is, I get my heading, whatever heading that might be, to-do list for day 1, to-do list for Tuesday, or whatever that heading might be, breakfast, study, walk, dog, and so forth. Now I would encourage you to take some time and extend this, go and maybe in a loop, ask the user to enter a to-do list, then when they are finished, maybe ask them to enter another to-do list, and so forth. Okay, that is something that you can try and do as a bonus. Okay, so go ahead and try this now, and when I come back I'll show you my implementation. So you should not have had any issues with this exercise. We have the string to-do list here, the standard string to-do list. I go and print out, enter your to-do list, and then I get that. I specify the cin for the first argument. To-do list is where we want to save to or write to, and then I go and specify the underscore as the delimiter. Otherwise, if we press enter, that new line character will then act as the delimiter. So instead I want the underscore, and then I go and print out your to-do list is, and then I do to-do list, maybe with a new line here. Okay, so I'll just build a run. You can enter something like this, to-do list, maybe Monday, press enter. See, now we can press enter without that being accepted as the delimiter. And I'll provide the underscore for the delimiter. Press enter, now we get your to-do list is. My to-do list for Monday, I get breakfast, study, and walk dog. And in a future lesson, we will discuss how we can write these things out maybe to a file and then read them back in, so you can have a sort of file on permanent storage, because again, this is not going to be persistent. This is simply going to ask you this each time you run the program. But in a future lesson, we'll see how we can actually save these things out to the drive. Alright, so simple exercise. And with that, we are going to wrap up this lecture. I'll see you next time.